how's it going, everyone? My name is JT, the Talking Head. You are the audience, and it is July, which means that Barnes& Noble is running its 50% off sale on Criterion. So last November, I believe it was, I made a video over on my TikTok, which you guys can go follow me at JT, the Talking Head on TikTok, making a little bit of a list about the top five, I believe it was, easiest to get into, like most accessible films in the Criterion Collection. And this isn't really that. This is more of my personal recommendations. Some of these films might be easier to get into than others. Some of them might be a little more difficult to grasp. Some of them are foreign or artsy or what have you. So, and I wanted to make this kind of more of a lazy kickback kind of video. Just kind of a recommendation thing. We did also talk about this on an upcoming episode of the Masters of Matinee podcast, so you guys can listen to that there soon. It's not out yet, but let's go ahead and start. The first one on my list, and these aren't really in any particular order until getting down the list. I'll let you know when they start kind of ranking. But first up, we have David Lynch's Blue Velvet. Now, this movie in particular is very, very Lynchian, and it's one of his earlier films. Now, the Criterion Collection has a lot of great Lynch films in it. Everyone talks about how great Mulholland Drive is. Mulholland Drive is a really great movie, but I prefer Elephant Man and Blue Velvet. But in the interest of this list here, this curation of recommendations for you, I tried not to repeat directors. But so I went with Blue Velvet over that. But it's very interesting. It's got Kyle MacLachlan in it, who is a longtime David Lynch collaborator, who also was in like Twin Peaks and all sorts of other Lynchian projects. So yeah, Kyle MacLachlan's in this, and it's a really great movie about a kid who returns home from college and finds an ear in a field, and it's just a wild story. And I I kind of akin Lynch to his filmmaking style to jazz. He's very um, eclectic. So that's the first recommendation. Next up, in honor of his new film Asteroid City, I'm going to give you my what I think is probably my favorite Wes Anderson film. It's Grand Budapest Hotel. Um, Everybody has probably heard about Grand Budapest Hotel, and honestly, if you haven't seen it yet, the Criterion version is probably the best version to view. I'm not gonna hark on too much, but it does have this really cool, like, digibook packaging with like multiple booklets, like three different booklets here, and I'm losing myself. I'm getting all out of whack. So yeah, Grand Budapest is probably my favorite Wes Anderson film. Um, Now, in my previous video on this last November, I did recommend Fantastic Mr. Fox, and I still stand by Fantastic Mr. Fox being a much easier and more approachable film. It's probably the most approachable film in all of Wes Anderson's filmography. Next, we're starting to get into the less approachable now. We'll circle back around to more approachable here in a minute. Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. This movie is definitely not for everybody. You kind of inherently have to enjoy foreign cinema, Japanese cinema, uh, being able to withstand movies with subtitles. I know not everybody can watch movies with subtitles all the time. Kurosawa's Seven Samurai is, gosh, it's like, yeah, 207 minutes long, so over 3 hours long, um, all in Japanese audio. But if you're going to watch a samurai film and you've never seen Seven Samurai, this is probably, it's well known to probably be the best samurai film ever made. It's one of my favorites in the entire collection, and I know that's not like I'm not alone in that. Like that's really a popular pick. When people are recommending something, if somebody wants to get into the Criterion Collection, so I'm gonna go ahead and jump on board and say, yeah, this is true. This is one that is not like because I feel like a lot of the time when collectors for the collection will recommend people something, they will try to find the most artsy, far out thing out there. It's least accessible than something like Grand Budapest, but it's more accessible than something like Eraserhead, I would say. But yeah, Seven Samurai, great film. Also, its Western remake counterpart, Magnificent Seven, is really great, and there was a really cool Walmart Blu-ray collection for like $10, and I'm sad that I haven't got yet. All right, next up is one that is a little more accessible, but is one of my, since I've seen it, is one of my favorite films of all time. And also, this came out last year on 4K from Criterion, and this is one of my favorite 4K discs. Period. And it's Scorsese's Raging Bull. This movie, Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, it's a boxing movie. It's a great story, great direction, but the reason that I really suggest this particular Criterion disc is if you have the ability to watch 4K, get the 4K disc of this on the Criterion sale that's currently going on here in July 2023. This movie is wild in 4K. The HDR, and I know the argument against HDR in black and white movies and saying that HDR is more for a colorful movie, but the thing is HDR on black and white really, really, really pops. And every black and white movie I've ever watched that had HDR 4K on it was really, really amazing. And I highly recommend Raging Bull just as a great film in general, even if you did get the Blu-ray or a non-Criterion, like Raging Bull is just a really good movie. But yeah, this Criterion disc in particular is awesome. Moving on, we have Come and See. This movie is from Elam Kilmov. I think that's how you pronounce the name. This is a really interesting look at World War II. I need to start trying to hold it over here. A very intriguing look at World War II. Uh, Typically, in our culture, whenever we view World War II, we view it through the lens of Americans either fighting Japanese or fighting Germany. This is about the people in Belarus and the Soviets and their struggle against Nazis invading them. It's about a young boy who enlists to go fight, and his family gets killed, and all this and that. And it's a very brutal war movie. It shows the true horrors of World War II, and I feel like it shows the horrors of World War II in a way that we don't get to see because typically, whenever we watch war movies, we see it's a very Americanized version, and Americans like to make Americans look like the heroes, and we don't really take true history into account. And the fact is that a film like this portrays World War II and the horrors of such in a way that it shows the war torn country that's being invaded. It shows that perspective. This movie is very heavy. Um, I highly recommend it. Come and see is awesome. All right, next up we have the Lady Snowblood collection. Now this is one I've only seen the first movie. I've not seen the second movie, so I can't speak on it. But this Criterion disc does come with both movies. I think it's on it's on a single disc. Both films on a single disc. The first Lady Snowblood is awesome. I personally am a sucker for a female revenge story. The basic synopsis is that Lady Snowblood, her mother and father were her mother was imprisoned after her father was killed, and I'm not going to go into why, but her mother was like SA'd and stuff, and like she had this baby in prison, and as she was in prison, and then she died of childbirth, and then Lady Snowblood grew up and took revenge on the people who destroyed her family before she was even born. This movie, along with the film Thriller: A Cruel Picture, which you can find in the Vinegar Syndrome collection on Blu-ray, this and that were both heavy influences on Quentin Tarantino when he made Kill Bill. That you will definitely see the stylized, if you enjoy Kill Bill films, you will definitely see the style portrayed very much so in Lady Snowblood. They're great action movies, great choreography, awesome blood effects, and just they're kind of brutal. But yeah, I really like them. All right, next we have Wim Wenders' Wings of Desire. This is one of my favorite films in the Criterion Collection. It's very pseudo religious. It's not like, I wouldn't go as far to say it's like sacrilegious. It's not like Passion of the Christ or anything, or not Passion of the Christ, Last Temptation of the Christ. It's more pseudo religious in that it deals with an angel who wants to be human. He wants to cut his wings and be a human. So he observes humanity, and it shows angels in a light that they're always there. They just can't be seen by us. And it's a very wonderful film. It's beautifully shot in black and white. I think there might be a 4K coming out of this from Criterion if there's not already one. So maybe look out for that before purchasing this Blu-ray. But me personally, I would upgrade if you already have the Blu-ray. Uh, this is a great movie. It's one of my all-time favorite films, not just ones in the Criterion Collection. It's a very important movie. I think that we should all watch just to get the human uh, interaction of it, like the human connection to it. The fact that an angel would want to be one of us because for whatever reason, it's just a very beautiful film. Winding down to the top three, this movie is not particularly in here because I think it's the best movie of all time, but it's more because of the quality of what the film is. It's one of the very few animated films in the Criterion Collection, and it's Wally from Disney Pixar. The reason I include this in this video in this curated list is because, simply put, the 4K edition of this, the 4K disc, and I know that not everybody cares about 4K, but I'm putting it in here just because I do. The 4K disc of this is one of the most beautiful discs I've ever spun in my player, ever. The HDR on this looks incredible. The scenes when they're in space, when they're up in the big ship, and everything's all colorful and everything. And then even when Wally's on Earth, when you look at 4K, you don't think of like oranges and reds as being colors that pop well with 4K. You think more of like the deep blues and the blacks and the inkiness of that. But no, like when Wally's on Earth and everything is kind of like orangey and dusty and gray and nasty, or red and nasty. The HDR still makes it pop really well. Um, and then also, I mean, the Criterion Collection. This film makes sense for it to be in the Criterion Collection. Out of all of the other like animated Disney Pixar films, I feel like Wally makes the most sense because the Criterion Collection is all about collecting films that are culturally important, and the message that Wally has for climate change and pollution and all that is incredibly important and incredibly relevant to today's society. So this movie, I think, is a great pickup. It's probably the most accessible movie on this list. I think I actually may have even no, I didn't, because this came out December last year. So this would have made it onto my most accessible list last year if it had been out. Moving on to number two pick. Now these two movies are a little bit interchangeable for me because I love both of them very equally, and these are literally the number two and number one things that I will always recommend to people looking to get into Criterion collecting. Number two, Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal. This is just a Blu-ray, but it did get a 4K, so I hear the 4K scan is awesome. I know over in the UK, BFI also did a 4K release of this, I think last year, and I hear that the BFI scan, the 4K scan from them, is actually superior to the Criterion scan. I've not spun either of them, so I cannot say for certain. I've only had the Blu-ray. I will probably upgrade this eventually. I don't think I will get the Criterion one. I'll probably go ahead and get the BFI one myself. But if you're in the market in the US and want either a Blu-ray or a 4K of this, $25 at Barnes and Noble or 20 for the Blu-ray is going to be a great deal for this movie. This is a film that I feel like everybody should see at least once or twice in their life. It's a great wrestling with faith movie. It's religious without pushing religion on you. It's the overall synopsis is this knight who returns from a holy crusade is wrestling with the ideas of God and life and meaning, and he ends up coming face to face with the personification of death. And death is trying to take his soul, so he challenges death to a game of chess for his soul. This is where the idea of challenging death to a game for your soul came from, or telling death a riddle, or what have you. Bergman's film portrays that, and it's an incredible story. It's incredible cinematography and everything. Bergman, uh I don't like all of Bergman's films. I don't ride on him as much as a lot of people typically do, but this movie is, in my opinion, one of the most important films that a human has ever made. It's an important film to watch. It's an important film to study, and it's one of my favorite films of all time. I honestly, like, looking at it from an analytical point of view, I feel like The Seventh Seal might be the best movie ever made. Like, when you it has like everything like that that goes for it, everything right going for it. So it's one of those. Now, last up is one that's 100% a personal pick for me. I chose this last because it's not for everybody. It's not something that's super, I would say, culturally important to society, but it's one that I personally enjoy so much, and it's like it breaks the bounds of the Criterion Collection for me, and it's one of my favorite films. I even own this on VHS, and that film is Down by Law from Jim Jarmusch, starring Tom Waits, Peter Lorre, and how do you say his name? Anthony Bergnoli, Roberto Benigni. Benigni. I can't. It's Italian. I'm not. I don't know why I said Antonio. It's Roberto Benigni. He is in a lot of other Jarmusch flicks too, especially Night on Earth, which is another one of my favorites in the Criterion Collection. Down by Law, it's a great prison escape movie. We've talked about this on Masters of Matinee on the show a couple times, being one of the best prison break movies ever. I put it up there in the same light of Oh Brother Where Art Thou, Cool Hand Luke, and Shawshank Redemption. Um, Tom Waits in this is absolutely incredible. I'm also a huge Tom Waits fan. I love his music. So I highly recommend Down by Law. It's a wonderful film. And there is 10 films from the Criterion Collection that I've curated into a recommendation video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you do, let me know and leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys are thinking about picking up in the sale this month in July, and any other recommendations that you might have. But that's about it from me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe. Go follow me over on TikTok because I'm almost at 1,000 followers, and once I do, I have another copy of Down by Law that I'm actually going to be giving away. So go follow me over there, and yeah, see ya.